It is tea topic time.
Tea topic time.
So, episode 560.
Yep.
Tea evaluation. How do you evaluate teas? How do you drink for pleasure? What's the difference?
Yeah, good question. I mean, for me at least, when I'm evaluating teas, it's usually for some purpose.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to understand what the purpose is. So if you are evaluating tea, I mean, sometimes the purpose could just be for how good the tea is.
Yeah.
Another purpose could be like, how well do I think this is going to age?
Right.
So there are different lenses that you would apply there. Or it could just be, I just kind of want to see, how this tea stacks up to another tea. So
Cool. And so,
yeah.
I'm going to leave this as kind of almost a Q&A, basically, and I'll interject with my own kind of take as well. But
Okay.
So with those sort of goals in mind, are you using different styles of brewing? How are you changing your methodology of brewing, strategy going into
Sure.
each session? How do you do it?
That's a good question. Like, if you're evaluating storage,
Yeah.
you would definitely want to focus on the first few infusions more than later. And the other thing you would want to do in evaluating storage is you would want to take a look at the wet leaf. And that way, once the tea is all brewed out, you would see, these leaves, like I have an example just right over to
Yeah.
the right, where you can see that one leaf is lighter than the others. You're like, okay, that one was probably drier stored versus this one.
Right.
So that would be one way. If you were evaluating...
Let me follow up on that
yeah.
specifically. Do you change your parameters in terms of how much leaf you're brewing with that kind of evaluation? So would you be brewing under kind of like pleasure parameters versus, brewing it quote unquote like hard? How are you thinking about literally like water, gaiwan, how much you're drinking? Are you drinking in comparison? Are you using a reference tea?
I think if you're drinking to compare storage, I don't know that it matters all that much. You would just make sure you want to get that wet leaf by the end.
Yeah.
But like if you are drinking something to compare it or just to evaluate it, you would definitely not want to deviate too far from your chosen parameters.
Right.
Otherwise, you're never sure. It's like, is it the parameters talking
Right.
or is it the actual tea talking? So that's always why when someone gives us suggestions like, oh, you should use 3 grams for this, it's always like, okay, well, if I have enough tea, maybe I'll do that. But I always much prefer to start as a default with something at least pretty close to my standard
Totally.
parameters before.
And is that going to train? Are you going to keep the same parameters? I'm kind of skipping around a little bit topically, but are you going to keep the parameters for evaluation versus pleasure? Would you use less leaf, more leaf? Does that change for you?
For evaluating versus...
Just casual drinking, yeah. Or like even like a nice tea, but still, not recording an episode.
I mean, it might literally be a caffeine thing.
Yeah,
where
sure.
It's like, okay, it's like I intend to drink through a bunch of teas today for comparison's
Right.
sake. And so I'm just going to, I'm not going to go way off the light end, but I'm going to go 15% less leaf on everything just to, keep it kind of going.
In this case, then, would you implement a smaller gaiwan or smaller brewing vessel and keep the same quantity or set the same ratio?
Sure. That's a good question, too. The smallest I go is this. I haven't really liked how tea has turned out when I go smaller than 75 milliliters. So, I mean, I could do this, and I could just dump half the infusion, too.
Yeah, okay.
That would work, too. I'm usually, when you're evaluating, you should be pretty liberal about dumping stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you're evaluating, you can, can make more tea, and you want to compare things
Right.
versus it. So it's important to, when I'm evaluating, I'm not too precious about wasting tea
Sure,
or
sure.
whatnot. Yeah.
And so, if you were going to do a storage evaluation, what I'm hearing you say is you probably want to keep the tea within the same recipe potentially, right? So maybe even the same vintage recipe, but then different store conditions. If you are going to do a comparison of storage, for example, so like we've done
Sure.
some comparisons of different storage and stuff, blinded and not. In those cases, keeping all the parameters roughly identical would make sense.
Yes, I agree.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And then other types of sort of goals in terms of your evaluation. So you talked about storage. What else? What was the second one?
Let's see. I mean, if you just want to like compare, it's like, this vendor has an iron cake that's the same as like this one, or it's like 1 year off or something. I want to compare them,
Right.
so you could side by side them in a way, and just see. And that way will become clear, like what the storage is, how they differ, but also how the tea quality could be different as well. So yeah, that's another thing. I mean, if I'm evaluating the tea, what I might do actually is to give it 2 rinses instead of 1, 2, just because the first steep is often a little weak. So just skipping straight to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to mirror that a little bit for myself, on my Denisodes, I typically do 2 rinses, just because I want to have that first steeping be potent and more discernible in terms of its differences between, if I especially been doing comparison between one and the other tea.
You're not just trying to further traumatize Rune Streaker 42.
Sorry, bud.
Relive your trauma.
And then I feel like you mentioned 3 different goals in terms of evaluation.
Well, I mean, I think probably those 2. I mean, it could be like different sorts of like seeing how good it is on itself versus like compared to something else.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question too. If you feel, maybe I'll not lead the question. So, are you ever in a drinking situation for yourself subjectively where you're trying to evaluate a tea and then you just realize, you know what, it's not the tea, it's not my parameters, it's me today?
Yeah.
You ever find yourself in those situations where you're like, man, I'm just off?
Sometimes, and sometimes it could be just a social situation. Like it's much harder to evaluate tea when it's someone else's brewing.
Right.
Like, for instance, one time in Hong Kong when I was on my honeymoon, I was introduced to this guy who had like this. I mean, it was like some really, really nice, fancy stuff.
Yeah.
But his parameters were so strong that it was basically impossible for me to evaluate the tea because everything was like, wow, this like 30-year-old tea tastes like it's like gonna kill me rather than like something. So
yeah.
And it's like, I mean, like you have to take that into account. I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, this 30-year-old tea is super strong. Obviously, it was the brewing in this case.
Totally, yeah.
So,
and we're all social animals, and we want to be, for the most part, agreeable. And if someone's getting a note, you can kind of notice it more versus being solo. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, I've also had someone say before that it's like the first tea is always the hardest to judge because it's going to feel good no matter what because you're just getting like a nice dose of caffeine.
Fair.
And so, there's all kinds of stuff that could be, I mean, like, depending on what you ate before, it could definitely all have pretty big impact. So I think it's important to, it's not all about the tea. Sometimes it's about you. Yeah.
And just speaking for myself personally, when I know I'm off and I'm not tasting something, it's not necessarily that I have like COVID, but I might just be like, oh, wow, I'm off. Maybe I'm underslept. Is food tasting the right today?
Sure.
Am I maybe getting a cold? It's possible. So I definitely have had sessions where like, I'm just like not doing it right. And I've had some false starts on the Denisodes, for example, where I've recorded, gotten halfway through and been like, I'm just like not, I know I'm not doing this tea justice.
Sure.
So don't be afraid to, I don't know, kind of like hit and run your tea.
Well, that's why it's good to try teas a couple times because you never know. I mean, because sometimes you'll come back to it as like it's probably me, and then it turns out it was the tea all along.
Right.
And you don't know that until you come back to it.
So speaking of which,
so
let's say barring the case where you really only have one session.
Sure.
Which happens a fair amount for us, but you have multiple sessions, 2, 3, 5 available to you. You got enough, 50 grams of tea or something like that. Are you going to kind of categorically, no matter what, drink at least 2 sessions of that tea? Especially, for example, if the first session is bad? Are there cases where you have the first session, you're like, God, this is on the out box?
Yeah, it's a lot of context dependent.
Sure.
Like if a tea sucks, and then I also know that it's some cheap shit.
Yeah.
That
fair.
Probably should suck.
Yeah.
I won't give it a second shot.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. If I know a tea is like, I mean, we're talking about polar examples here. If I know a tea is like famous and a good example, I will spend that extra effort attempting to try it. So it's very dependent, and you're not judging everything blindly. Different sorts of teas are going to get different levels of opportunity.
Yeah. I'm the same way. And I think especially teas that I know, other people really like it, or James, you've a strong recommendation, I just can't connect with it. I'll give it at least 2, if not 3 sessions before I make a final decision about it. One way to kind of distinguish that might be, and I'm sort of implementing this on a different project, is sessions versus a review, right?
Yeah.
Sessions are individual moments. Reviews are a kind of, a combination of experience with the tea, as well as other contexts. So, and then...
One other thing I'll just quickly add is evaluating tea is a lot easier too when you are comparing similar teas, not necessarily even side by side. If you had like a Shagwan earlier in the week or the previous day and you have another Shagwan, it's a lot easier to compare that versus like, oh man, what did that Shagwan taste like 2 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In philosophy speak, that's called the retentional horizon. So yeah, absolutely. You just having it kind of on the tongue, if you will. In terms of or not evaluation, but just drinking for pleasure, so it sounds like you're using the same parameters. do you have a method? Are you still sitting there thinking about it with your pen and paper or however you're doing it? Or is it really just like, I'm enjoying this? And maybe a kind of a follow-up question would be, let's say you're drinking a really nice tea for pleasure, but you're still not there to record or do anything like that for content or something
No
like that.
specific purpose, yeah.
Yeah. How are you thinking about those kind of sessions? Something that's like, a special brew.
Sometimes I will still take notes just because I find it like improves the session.
Yeah, totally.
And you and I are the same in the sense that our handwriting is so bad that it's not like we can go back and reference it consistently.
Yeah, I'm trying to solve this problem. More to come.
Yeah. It's like my handwriting has devolved from like 4th grade level to like 1st grade level at this point.
Pigeon scratch.
Pretty bad. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? Not going to worry about this. But really, I'm just trying to have the tea as best as I'll enjoy it.
So, and then one more question in terms of, probably a couple more in terms of evaluation. When do you bring in a reference tea?
Just when I'll need it. Like, for instance, when I did like the Shaguan Masochist report where I drank through it, I bookended it with reference teas. Cool. So I started with like a couple reference teas and I finished with a couple reference, because you want to start, you want to like basically anchor your tasting in something like that, and then it's a lot easier to compare stuff when it's like more in recent memory, just kind of where we're talking about. Then you want to have it again at some point if you're drinking enough teas where like, okay, I want to re-anchor myself and make sure I'm not like, because you can like slowly drift off course with these teas, including your memories, which are very much human memories. So, I mean, it's all part of just kind of the experience. Yeah.
More announcements to come. We'll see when this releases. Okay. What else? How else? So I'll speak a little bit for myself, because I think I do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
For pleasure, I do use a little bit less leaf.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I use about 4 grams of leaf per 50 milliliters of water, which is still very strong.
That's pretty strong, yeah.
Yeah. But on evaluation, I use 5 grams.
Okay.
And on pleasure drinking, I typically don't weigh the tea. So 4 grams is loosey-goosey. So sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6. Sometimes it's 3.5.
Sure.
Yeah. But usually it's kind of roughly the same. And for folks out there, one way to make sure that you're kind of roughly in the same parameters is to cover your scale with tape so you can't see it. Weigh how much you kind of guesstimate is your typical non-weighed tea. Put it in there, see how much it actually is. It's a good way to learn what your rough parameters typically are.
And what about vessel size? Do you vary that at all?
Unless it's with someone else, no.
Okay.
I'm always using the 51 milliliter Gaiwans that I have. Except for, I don't even like think of this in the same category, but like my morning ripe, I have basically your equivalent of like the Big Blue Pot or whatever. So that's also just like chocked full, brews so strong that I'll like have to add water sometimes to just the actual chai. But I love my morning ripe like that. And then for evaluation versus pleasure, I'm definitely more dialed in. I am not drinking necessarily to enjoy the tea. Evaluation teas for me typically are teas where I'm trying to understand where it's headed. I think that was one of the things we talked about actually that we didn't brush on, so we can go back to it. But how do I think of it in comparison to whatever if I want to buy it? And in that sense, some of those teas that I'm drinking might not be teas that I'm expecting to enjoy in that session or even near term. But I'm hoping to kind of understand what it could be like. What's the promise of that tea?
Sure. And sometimes, like when you're testing a tea for aging or whatever, you want to make sure it's got good, dense, strong bones.
Yeah.
And so what you'll do is you'll stress test it, and you're like, "Wow, this was still not coaxing a lot of bitterness or a lot of mouth activity out. It's probably too weak, so maybe I'm not as interested, even though I might enjoy it now."
Yeah, exactly. So for my methodology, kind of the quick version of it would be for evaluation: 5 grams of leaf, 50 to 60 milliliters of water, a vessel size, so you're not getting that much extraction. And I made a Denny Soda about kind of the extraction curve of tea. You can watch that. And then 2 rinses. First infusion, I like to give it more than a flash steep usually, unless it's very small pieces. Okay. So if it's got 2 or 3 chunks, then I'm going to give it something like 5 seconds. Second infusion, flash steep. Third infusion, the third steeping, 5th infusion, which is going to be pushing it. So I'll give
Okay.
it like 15 seconds.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that's going to hurt sometimes, if not most of the time.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's more or less exactly how I do it, other
Right.
than the second rinse. So that second rinse you don't do for pleasure.
No,
Okay.
not usually. Unless I can detect it's going to be like a really kind of sour, funky ripe tea, or it's got some just like nasty storage
Sure.
on it that I need to get rid of.
Or like iron cake, sometimes I'll do a double
For sure.
rinse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
It's a
because
good example.
they need some
Definitely.
time to
Yeah,
come apart,
absolutely. Yeah, or and you can maybe extend the first rinse if you want to for like a royal Dulong, for example. That can be helpful. Like
Yeah.
a charcoal roasted royal Dulong, those tend to just take a while to open up. And then for pleasure, yeah, it's like 4 grams. I'll drink the second steeping. I'm not as dialed in necessarily, although if it's a nicer tea, then usually I'm drinking for evaluation. But yeah, for my nicer stuff that I now have, I do try to focus in though. a fair
Sure.
amount.
How much would you say you drink evaluation versus purchasing, at least this year? Because your tea habits have changed a fair bit this year.
Evaluation versus pleasure.
Yeah.
So excluding my morning ripe, which again is just I kind of like see it as a different thing almost.
But really, it's for pleasure.
It's always for pleasure.
Yeah.
So let's exclude that because that does take up like a large quantity of grams of tea that I consume. Because that's probably like 8 grams of tea. I'd probably say like 30-70, 40-60 evaluation versus pleasure.
Okay, so more pleasure. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about right. Because I'll usually do kind of like 2 raws a day, typically, at this point. Which might be a little much. And maybe in terms of release schedule, I'm doing about 3 Danny Sodas a week. So you can get the math on that, however, figure that out how you want. I'm not doing 2 raws every day. But yeah, that's about something like that, I'd say.
Okay.
And for the pleasure tea, I'm usually going back to familiar teas. You know, sometimes I'll do a comparison of a reference tea that I really like and enjoy, and it helps me understand whatever other thing I'm trying to focus a bit more on as well. But I won't usually, for pleasure, reach to those teas that need time. There's no point. They're not ready yet.
Yeah.
So we have like one of the first couple cakes that I got for those Chen Chen Hao teas. They're really great, but they're not ready yet.
They're in back storage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I have like a small amount available so that I can show them to a friend or something like that. But for the most part, I just don't ever reach for them at all.
Yeah, those sorts of teas, I when I originally bought it, I was like, oh, I'll probably drink it now and then. And so I had access to them, and I realized, nope, never want to drink them, so
Yeah.
you just kind of stash them
Yeah,
away.
exactly. And that's what they're intended for, right?
Yeah.
It's a long-term project. Yeah. And then I forgot again what the... Oh, yeah, teas that are in-betweener teas. Never mind.
It just kind of depends on in-betweeners. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like double lions might be a bit of an in-betweener.
Yeah,
It's like just
strange.
at a moment where it's, you can enjoy it, but it's not maybe at its peak potential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like your daily drinking, would you say that you're drinking... What about you, like in terms of your ratio kind of evaluation versus pleasure?
I'd say it's similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of depends. I mean, I'll go through... just because I find evaluation so much easier when I'm doing it in sequence with other stuff, that I will usually be phases like, okay, like for instance, right now I'm filming a bunch of in-between episodes. So as a result, most of my tea drinking is actually more evaluation rather than pleasure. But, it'll swing back the other way where I won't have to drink for evaluation for a month or something like that.
Interesting. And so when you do your drinking, it sounds like you do kind of batch things up a little bit.
I batch a lot, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
But for pleasure, it's the opposite. It's a lot of diversity.
Right.
It's like I'm going to have one raw puer and one like old Dubao today.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So go into that, and with that, I think. What would the sort of for pleasure drinking look like if you had to kind of ration it out in terms of categories of tea?
I think for me, it's about 50-ish% like raw, dryish stored puer. And then the rest would be a mix of rock oolong, some other oolongs, occasionally aged oolongs as well, and older, like more traditionally stored puer or lubao.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's probably... Probably like 50% similar, older, dry-aged puer. Sheng puer. And then I like a fair amount of the white teas and black teas still. I
Yeah.
still drink them pretty regularly.
So that's the difference between you and I.
Yeah.
It's like I never drink those. I
Yeah.
don't reach for them, so
Yeah.
I don't buy them anymore.
I get them, and especially summertime, and they're great ice. So I'll do a hard session for myself, ice it, and then serve it to my wife.
Yeah.
And then she really enjoys that.
And on the other hand, you don't really drink rock oolong or anything like that.
Not too much. I don't reach for it too much.
Yeah.
I like to introduce it to friends because I think it's really interesting as a category, and I enjoy our sessions here. But it's not something that I reach for quite as often. I think say probably I'd like a semi-roasted or pretty green jade Taiwanese oolong, something like
Yeah.
that. If I had to pick.
Yeah. So there you go. I actually don't know that we've talked about that too much on episodes. So
Yeah.
those are our actual tea habits. and
Yeah,
preferences.
totally. Let us know about your evaluation and versus pleasure drinking. Do you change parameters? Do you approach teas with different goals based on the sort of tea that you're drinking? Give us feedback too. Is this helpful? Do you want to let us know about other sorts of topics that we can cover? We'd love to know. Hopefully these are kind of more evergreen content, although something like this probably will change over time, as would anyone's tea habits. So the more that you've had potentially and you're not filming, potentially the more you're going to be into kind of more of the pleasure and less of the evaluation. It just depends on
Yeah, no,
who
I
you are.
would guess that we, as a result of who we are and stuff, gear a little bit more one way.
Yeah.
In fact, I would almost say it's unhealthy if you're like too much on the evaluation side of things, which I think could become a danger at points with, my drinking. I'm like, oh, geez, I got like another week of drinking. So it's important
be
to
fun.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the purpose, yeah.
Totally. Comment below, let us know what other things that you want to see. Send this to your chiropractor's divorced uncle
Post one up.
and subscribe until next time.